1966. The United States military is stalling in the dense, asymmetrical terrain of Vietnam. Conventional doctrine is failing against an invisible enemy, and frontline reports indicate that standard rules of engagement no longer apply. Inside the Pentagon, the pressure is mounting. A massive manpower deficit has left the government politically trapped, desperate for a way to increase troop numbers without expanding the draft. U.S. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara approached this deficit with the mindset of a senior executive from the Ford Motor Company. He viewed military strategy through the lens of industrial optimization, tracking human lives on the same spreadsheets he once used to monitor factory output. To McNamara, the chaotic theater of war was a centralized corporate factory. He believed that even the most horrific conflict could be solved by perfecting the system. McNamara's solution involved lowering military induction benchmarks to draft over 300,000 low IQ individuals into the war zone. This factory automation thesis assumed that cognitive demands could be isolated. High IQ officers would act as the centralized brains of the operation, while low IQ soldiers would serve as the hands, executing rigid, linear drills and standard operating procedures. Publicly, McNamara claimed the military environment would act as a catalyst for these men. He argued that the rigors of combat training would force their brains to adapt and actually increase their measured intelligence. This strategy attempted to program human beings like hardware in a machine, forcing biological reality to conform to a corporate model. Understanding why this failed requires a specific definition of IQ. It measures fluid intelligence, the brain's raw capacity to find structure within random noise. Look at this cognitive puzzle. Solving it requires the brain to hold multiple abstract shapes and track their shifting rules simultaneously. This mental juggling happens in the frontoparietal network, which dictates working memory. For an average brain, the hardware is limited to 3 or 4 variable slots. A low IQ brain hits a hard physical bottleneck much earlier. Its capacity is restricted to just 2 or 3 variables before the processing hardware hits its limit. In a sterile, controlled training base, this reduced bandwidth functions effectively. As long as the environment is predictable, the factory illusion holds. The simulation of the training base vanishes during a real jungle ambush. The variables become unpredictable, and the cognitive load shifts instantly. The human brain must suddenly process incoming gunfire, radio traffic, uneven terrain, and visual smoke all at once. The weight of life or death stress causes an immediate 40 to 50% collapse in the brain's working memory capacity. A high IQ soldier possesses a high enough baseline to stay functional during this collapse, but a soldier who starts with a lower baseline drops to absolute zero, leading to a total system failure. The men who froze or failed on the battlefield were experiencing a biological processor crash. The weight of the variables simply exceeded their hardware's ability to respond. Project 100,000 resulted in a death rate triple that of normal combatants. Instances of friendly fire doubled as the automated hands struggled to distinguish signals from noise in the heat of battle. Survivors faced severe PTSD and institutional abandonment, with post-war earnings and mental stability metrics falling far below those of their civilian peers. This disposal of human lives mirrored the 1900s eugenics movement, which used clinical labels to classify low IQ humans as liabilities to the system. McNamara's optimization failed because it ignored the biological threshold of human survival. The 60-year Terman's termite study followed 1,500 children with genius-level IQs to see if high scores guaranteed success. While the high IQ cohort lived stable lives, they produced no world-changing discoveries. Meanwhile, William Shockley and Luis Alvarez were both rejected from that study for having scores that were too low, and they both went on to win Nobel Prizes in physics. IQ reflects the speed of a calculation processor, but it cannot dictate the target's direction. Project 100,000 remains history's deadliest optimization error because it attempted to turn human intelligence into an assembly line.